Alexander Mitchell stood frozen before the mirror, layers of crisp white silk cascading around his trembling hands. Just hours ago, he was sketching portraits at a Brooklyn cafe, the familiar smell of coffee grounds and pastries filling his senses. Now he was in a wedding suit that wasn't his, about to speak vows he didn't mean. His reflection looked like a stranger about to marry Jackson Hayes, the youngest tech billionaire in Silicon Valley, a man he'd met only twice. "It's only pretend," Alex whispered to himself, adjusting his tie. "A fake wedding, a fake smile. One day, and I'm free." That was the deal. 48 hours of pretense to save Hayes Technologies' reputation after Jackson's real fiancée had vanished just days before the ceremony. He would play the husband, sign a contract, get paid enough to keep his late Aunt Lydia's art studio, and disappear. But as the music swelled and the doors to the Hamptons estate garden opened, his heart pounded harder than the orchestra. The crowd rose: tech executives, Silicon Valley royalty, influential investors. For a fleeting moment, it didn't feel fake at all. Jackson stood at the altar, composed in his black tuxedo, gaze locked on Alex with unsettling calm. Not the cold arrogance Alex expected from a man of his wealth, but something deeper, quieter. The officiant's voice blurred as Alex walked down the aisle, each step echoing his doubts. When he reached Jackson, the man offered his arm, steady and warm. "Ready," he murmured, "as I'll ever be." Alex breathed. The vows were simple, pre-written, transactional. Alex repeated each line like reciting a script until the moment came. The words, "Do you take this man," lingering in the air. He hesitated for a fraction of a second, long enough for whispers to ripple through the guests. Then Jackson leaned close, his voice low, meant only for Alex. "Nothing will be canceled," he whispered. And in that instant, Alex's breath caught. It wasn't part of the plan. The way Jackson said it, soft but firm, like a promise, sent a strange warmth through his chest. Cameras flashed, applause erupted, and the officiant declared, "You may kiss the groom." It was supposed to be for show, but when Jackson's hand brushed Alex's cheek, his touch wasn't rehearsed. The kiss was brief, yet real enough to make Alex forget, for one dangerous heartbeat, that this was all pretend. Somewhere between the applause and the orchestra's crescendo, Alex realized something terrifying. The line between fake and real had already started to blur. He thought of Sophie's warning the night before. "Be careful, Alex. Hearts don't know the difference between acting and feeling." But it was too late. The contract was signed. The studio would be saved. And Alexander Mitchell, who had sworn never to trust another man after Mason had stolen his art and his heart 3 years ago, was now legally bound to Jackson Hayes, a man whose secrets ran deeper than his fortune. As they drove away in the sleek black limousine, Alex stared at his reflection in the tinted window, his own eyes looking back at him questioning. He had entered this arrangement to preserve his aunt's legacy, the only person who had embraced him when his parents couldn't accept his truth. Now he wondered what else he might lose in this bargain, perhaps something he'd guarded more carefully than any painting. In life, the most dangerous deceptions aren't the ones we play on others, but the ones we tell ourselves. The journey from pretending to feeling is shorter than we think, and sometimes the most authentic moments come from the least authentic beginnings. Have you ever found yourself caught between what's real and what's pretend? Follow our journey at Heart Stories and subscribe for more tales that challenge the boundaries of love and truth. The New York City skyline shimmered through floor-to-ceiling windows as Alex entered Jackson's Manhattan penthouse for the first time. The space was vast, minimalist furniture, abstract art, and views that made the city look like a constellation beneath him. This would be his home for the next 6 months, a gilded cage with a contract for bars. "Guest room is down the hall," Jackson said, his voice echoing in the marble entryway. "Staff comes Mondays and Thursdays. Your studio space is set up in the east corner." He paused, noticing Alex's expression. "Is something wrong?" Alex's fingers tightened around his worn leather portfolio. You prepared a studio. Jackson shrugged, the gesture too casual for the thoughtfulness behind it. Your contract mentioned preserving your aunt's artistic legacy. Hard to do that without a place to work. The studio was breathtaking north-facing windows, professional lighting, canvases of every size. For a man who engineered calm, Jackson understood the needs of an artist with surprising precision. That night, Alex stood on the balcony, staring at the city lights while his phone buzzed with texts from Sophie. Don't fall for the penthouse. Her message read, or the billionaire. Easier said than done when the billionaire appeared beside him, offering coffee in a chipped mug that seemed out of place among his perfection. It was my grandmother's, Jackson explained, noticing Alex's surprise. Only thing I have from before. Before what? Before I became Jackson Hayes, he replied, the weight of unspoken history in his words. Their first public appearance came 3 days later, a charity gala for LGBTQ+ youth. Alex wore a suit chosen by Jackson's stylist, feeling like an imposter among Manhattan elites. When Victor Lawson, a silver-haired investor, made a snide comment about Hayes' convenient marriage timing, Alex found himself defending a man he barely knew. The only convenience, Alex said, voice steadier than he felt, is having someone who sees beyond your checkbook, Mr. Lawson. Later, as paparazzi cameras flashed outside, Jackson whispered, You didn't have to do that. Isn't that what husbands do? Alex replied, the word husband strange on his tongue. Back at the penthouse, Jackson disappeared into his office while Alex retreated to his studio. The rhythm of their days took shape: breakfast in comfortable silence, separate work hours, occasional dinners discussing art and technology, as if testing the boundaries of their arrangement. One evening, Alex accidentally wandered into Jackson's private study, finding blueprints for a building labeled Safe Harbor Arts Center. He didn't realize Jackson had entered until the man spoke from the doorway. It's for LGBTQ+ kids who've been kicked out, Jackson explained, no anger in his voice despite the intrusion. Like I was at 16, Benham, the confession hung between them, unplanned and raw. Alex thought of his own parents, their quiet disappointment, their uncomfortable acceptance, nothing like the total rejection Jackson had faced. What happened? Alex asked. Jackson's smile didn't reach his eyes. Classic story. Religious father, family business heir, gay son, disowned in under 20 minutes. He approached the blueprints, fingers tracing the outline. Built my first app living in my car. Promised myself that if I ever made it, I'd create a place for kids like me. That night changed something between them. The fake marriage acquired a layer of genuine respect. When Jackson introduced Alex to Marcus, an older gay activist who'd survived the AIDS crisis and now advised on the Center project, Alex found himself sketching improvements to the building's design, adding a wing with his own small contribution, a symbol of two wings taking flight. Freedom. He explained when Jackson questioned the motif. That's what art gave me when I had nothing else. That's what these kids need. As weeks passed, Alex found himself pulled into Jackson's world corporate events, foundation meetings, late-night coding sessions where he'd sketch while Jackson worked. The press labeled them Silicon Valley's power couple, unaware of the contract in Jackson's safe. Yet something was shifting. Alex noticed how Jackson's hand lingered on his back during photographs, how their conversations stretched into the early morning hours, how they'd begun to instinctively understand each other's moods. When Sophie visited, her eyes narrowed at their domestic dance. The pretending looks awfully convincing, she warned over coffee when Jackson was out. It's just good acting, Alex insisted. For which one of you? Sophie challenged. The question haunted him, especially when Benjamin, Jackson's former fiancé, appeared at the penthouse unannounced, threatening to expose their arrangement unless paid for his silence. Alex watched Jackson handle the situation with cold efficiency, but later found him staring at the city, shoulders heavy with invisible weight. You carry too much alone now, Alex said, joining him. Jackson's laugh was hollow. says the artist who won't show his work after what Mason did. The truth stung, but it was fair. They were both hiding Jackson behind his wealth, Alex behind his fear. That night, they sat side by side on the balcony, not touching, just existing in the quiet understanding that pretending had become its own kind of truth. Because sometimes the families we choose teach us more than the ones we're born into. And sometimes the walls we build to protect ourselves become the very barriers that prevent us from finding what we truly need. The storm arrived without warning. Alex woke to find Jackson's side of the breakfast bar empty, his coffee untouched. The television in the living room blared financial news, Hayes Technologies stock plummeting, rumors of compromised intellectual property, questions about leadership stability. For 3 days, Jackson barely returned to the penthouse. When he did, his eyes were shadowed, his movements tense. "It's fine," he insisted when Alex asked. But the sharp tone of his phone calls and the constant meetings with lawyers told a different story. On the fourth morning, Alex found himself alone in the elevator with Ryan, Jackson's longtime assistant and friend. "Someone's leaking information to competitors," Ryan confided, voice low. "Jackson suspects it's internal." "Victor Lawson?" Alex asked, remembering the silver-haired investor's contempt at the gala. Ryan's eyes widened slightly. His son, CFO position, family connections, perfect saboteur. Later that week, during a rare dinner together, Alex noticed Jackson's gaze lingering on the center blueprints spread across the coffee table. "We might need to postpone the project," Jackson said, the words clearly painful. Why? Alex challenged. "Because of stock prices. Because Victor Lawson Sr. is now demanding we focus on profitable ventures, or he pulls his investors." Jackson's knuckles whitened around his glass. "The center doesn't qualify as profitable in his book." Alex felt a surge of protectiveness. "It's your money, your company. It's not that simple." Jackson sighed. "Corporate governance is..." Their conversation was interrupted by the doorbell. Thomas Hayes stood in the hallway. Jackson's features hardened into an older, sharper face. "Little brother," Thomas said, striding into the penthouse uninvited. Quite the domestic scene. The tension between the brothers crackled like static. Thomas hadn't spoken to Jackson since their parents' disownment over a decade ago. "What do you want?" Jackson asked, voice carefully controlled. Thomas smiled thinly. "Just checking how my fake brother-in-law is doing." He turned to Alex. "He tell you about our family? About why he really needs this marriage charade?" "That's enough," Jackson warned. "Is it?" Thomas challenged. "Does he know the Hayes fortune remains in trust unless you are suitably married by 33 Father's little insurance policy against the family disappointment?" Alex felt the floor shift beneath him. Another secret, another layer to their arrangement he hadn't known. When he looked at Jackson, the tech genius had disappeared, leaving only a wounded man in expensive clothes. "Get out," Alex said to Thomas, stepping between the brothers. "Whatever issues you have with Jackson, they're between you, but in this home, you don't get to weaponize his pain." After Thomas left, the silence was deafening. "You never mentioned the trust," Alex said quietly. Jackson's laugh was bitter. "Would you have believed I didn't marry you for money when my own inheritance depended on it?" The question hung unanswered as an urgent call pulled Jackson away. That night, Alex couldn't sleep. He found himself in Jackson's study, searching for something evidence. Reassurance. He wasn't sure which. Instead, he discovered financial reports showing millions diverted from Hayes Technologies, all authorized with signatures that didn't quite match Jackson's. The next morning, Ryan appeared at the penthouse, frantic. "Jackson's disappeared. Board meeting in 2 hours. They're voting to suspend him." "What?" Alex felt his world tilting again. "Stocks down 40%. Someone leaked our autonomous vehicle schematics to competitors. They're saying Jackson sold to sell them himself." Journalists camped outside the building, shouting questions as Alex tried to leave. "Did you know about your husband's fraud? Was the marriage part of the scheme?" The words cut like glass. Back upstairs. Alex paced the penthouse, torn between self-preservation and loyalty. Jackson had deceived him about the inheritance, about the depth of the corporate crisis. The rational choice was to walk away, take the payment from their contract, and disappear. Instead, he found himself drawn to the one place in the penthouse he'd never explored: Jackson's bedroom. On the nightstand sat a small wooden box. Inside was a key and a handwritten note. Storage facility on Canal Street, Unit 315. If you're reading this, I couldn't stop what was coming. Trust no one from the board, Jay. Alex stared at the key. Jackson's last confidence. This was his moment of choice: walk away from a deception that had grown too complicated, or dive deeper into a truth that might destroy them both. Outside, rain began to fall, streaking the windows of the penthouse like tears. The city stretched endlessly below, each light a life unaware of how quickly everything could change. Alex clutched the key, feeling its weight heavier than metal had any right to be. Because sometimes the greatest acts of courage aren't running into burning buildings, but staying when every instinct screams to leave. Sometimes loyalty isn't blind faith, but choosing to see beyond the surface of another's mistakes. And sometimes the most important truths emerge only when everything else has been stripped away. Rain hammered against Alex as he reached the storage facility on Canal Street, his clothes soaked through, the key clutched in his palm. Unit 317 was at the end of a dimly lit corridor, its padlock rusted from years of neglect. The key turned with resistance, the door groaning open to reveal stacks of bankers' boxes, their labels faded but meticulous. Inside, Alex discovered the evidence Jackson had been gathering for months: forged documents, duplicate contracts with altered terms, emails showing Victor Lawson Jr. systematically undermining Hayes Technologies while funneling assets to shell companies. It wasn't just corporate espionage, it was calculated destruction. A noise behind him made Alex turn. Victor Lawson Jr. stood in the doorway, his tailored suit incongruous against the grimy surroundings. "Mitchell." Victor nodded, as if they'd met for coffee. Surprising to find Jackson's pet artist doing his dirty work. "This isn't dirty work," Alex replied, indicating the evidence. "It's the truth." Victor's laugh was hollow. "Truth is negotiable in business, as is loyalty." He stepped closer. "Though I'm curious, how much did he pay you for this charming marriage performance?" The question stung more than it should have. "Why sabotage your own company?" Alex countered, changing the subject. "My company," Victor corrected. "My father funded Hayes when no one else would touch the disowned gay kid with big dreams. We owned 40%, but Jackson never understood gratitude or partnership." His expression hardened. The Safe Harbor Arts Center was the final straw: millions diverted to a vanity project for unwanted kids instead of shareholder dividends. "It's not vanity," Alex said, understanding flowing through him. "It's purpose." "Please," Victor scoffed. "Jackson Hayes is a cold, calculating machine. Everything is strategic, including you. Did he tell you about the inheritance clause? About the board's threat to remove him if he couldn't project stability after Benjamin left?" Victor's smile was cruel. "You were a convenient solution to multiple problems." The accusation echoed Alex's deepest fears. Had he been nothing but a business transaction, a corporate asset? "Sign this." Victor slid a document forward. "Affidavit confirming your marriage was fraudulent. Walk away with twice what he offered you. Let the board handle Hayes." Alex stared at the document, the weight of decision pressing upon him. Then, through the rain-washed windows, he saw a familiar figure approaching Jackson, drenched and exhausted, his usual perfect appearance abandoned. "Don't sign anything," Jackson's voice carried across the room. His eyes found Alex's with an intensity that made everything else fade. "I should have told you everything from the beginning. The inheritance, the board pressure. All of it was real, but that's not why I chose you." Victor moved suddenly, lunging for the evidence boxes. Jackson intercepted him, the two men crashing against metal shelving. Years of corporate rivalry erupted into physical struggle. When Victor pulled a small canister pepper spray, Alex realized with horror Jackson knocked it aside, sending it skittering across the concrete floor. In the chaos that followed, Ryan arrived with security guards and, moments later, police. Victor was escorted out, his threats of legal retaliation fading as evidence boxes were cataloged for the investigation. At the hospital later, where doctors treated Jackson's sprained wrist, Alex sat silently beside the bed, questions tumbling through his mind. "Why didn't you tell me everything?" he finally asked. Jackson's laugh was soft, pained. "Because I was afraid you'd see what everyone else sees, a calculated risk assessment instead of a man." "And what do I see now?" Jackson met his gaze. "Someone who started this as a business arrangement and somehow found himself caring too much." The confession hung between them, neither fully acknowledged nor denied. Alex thought of Mason's betrayal, of Jackson's secrets, of the walls they'd both built. "I need time," Alex said finally. It's too much." Jackson nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready." 2 weeks passed. Hayes Technologies stock rebounded as Victor's schemes were exposed. The board reinstated Jackson with a public apology. Through it all, Alex kept his distance, retreating to Sophie's apartment to process everything. Then came the confrontation he hadn't anticipated: Jackson's parents appearing at Hayes Technologies headquarters, demanding to see their son, Alex, there to retrieve his sketchbooks. Witness Jackson's father condemning him yet again. "Even with your precious marriage, you've embarrassed the family name." The elder Hayes spat. Something protective ignited in Alex. "The only embarrassment," he interrupted, stepping forward, "is a father who can't recognize courage when it stands before him." His words silenced the room. Jackson stared at him with wonder, as if seeing a stranger. Later, as they stood alone in Jackson's office, the tension between them had transformed into something different, something honest. "I never expected you to defend me," Jackson said quietly. "Neither did I," Alex admitted. "But then I realized, fake marriage or not, I know who you really are. I've seen it in how you fight for those kids, in how you faced Victor, in every quiet moment when you thought no one was watching." Jackson stepped closer, hesitant for perhaps the first time since they'd met. "And who am I?" "Alex. Someone worth choosing," Alex replied, the truth of it settling in his bones. "Not because of contracts or obligations, but because beneath everything, you're the most filial person I've ever known." That evening, Jackson called a press conference. Standing before a sea of cameras, he confessed the truth about their marriage's origins, a business arrangement born from necessity. But then his voice softened as he looked directly at Alex in the crowd. "What began as pretend became my truth," he said simply. "Nothing will be canceled, not anymore. From now on, everything will be real." The world might have been watching, but in that moment, they were the only two people who mattered. Because sometimes the bravest thing isn't starting with honesty, but finding your way there through the darkness of fear. Sometimes love doesn't announce itself with grand gestures, but with quiet moments of choosing someone over and over again, even when it would be easier to walk away. Spring sunlight filtered through the soaring windows of the Safe Harbor Arts Center, casting prismatic patterns across freshly painted walls. Alex adjusted the last canvas in the inaugural exhibition, a series he'd titled Nothing to Everything, chronicling the journey from deception to truth through abstract forms and colors. Each painting represented a moment in the extraordinary year that had transformed his life. 1 year since the fake wedding, 1 year since Jackson's whispered promise, 1 year of building something neither of them had dared to imagine. "The mayor's car just pulled up," Jackson said, appearing in the doorway. Though still CEO of a billion-dollar technology company, today he wore no tie. His sleeves rolled to reveal the tattoo he'd gotten 6 months earlier, 2 simple wings on his wrist, matching the center's logo. "Are the kids ready?" Alex asked, referring to the group of LGBTQ+ youth who would be leading tours through the building. Nervous but excited, Jackson smiled. Cody's practiced his speech about 50 times. Alex nodded, pride swelling as he thought of the 17-year-old who'd arrived at their temporary shelter last winter, thrown out by religious parents with nothing but a backpack and broken confidence. Now Cody was the center's first scholarship recipient, headed to art school in the fall. The grand opening ceremony unfolded beneath a magnificent atrium, the architectural embodiment of the wing motif Alex had sketched that night in the penthouse so long ago. Local politicians, celebrities, and supporters filled the space. But the true guests of honor were the 43 young people who had already found refuge in the Hayes Mitchell Foundation's programs. As Jackson stepped to the podium to deliver his speech, Alex found himself studying his husband's face, no longer the guarded billionaire, but a man whose purpose had become his salvation. "A year ago," Jackson began, "I thought I was building a shelter. What I didn't understand was that safety isn't just about walls and roofs. It's about being seen for who you truly are." His eyes found Alex in the crowd. Sometimes the people who teach us this truth arrive in our lives through the most unexpected circumstances. The celebration continued into evening, a whirlwind of congratulations and tours. In a quiet moment, Alex slipped away to the small gallery dedicated to the center's creation story. There, framed behind glass, was his original sketch with Jackson's handwritten note beneath it. "Nothing will be canceled." "There you are," a voice said softly. Thomas Hayes stood in the doorway, awkward but determined. The brothers' reconciliation had begun 3 months earlier, fragile, imperfect, but genuine. "Your parents?" Alex asked. Thomas shook his head. "Mom wanted to come. Dad wouldn't allow it." He paused. "But she sent this." He handed Jackson a small package. Inside was their grandmother's wedding band, the one she'd left Jackson in her will, the one his father had kept from him. A note in elegant script read simply, "For a marriage that became real, I'm proud of you." Later that night, after the guests had gone, Alex and Jackson walked through the empty center, their footsteps echoing in the peaceful silence. In the main hall, moonlight illuminated the massive mural created by the center's first residents, faces of all kinds, colors swirling into a vision of belonging. "Do you ever think about how it started?" Alex asked, his fingers intertwined with Jackson's. "The fake wedding," Jackson smiled. "Every day." "Would you change it, knowing everything that followed?" Jackson stopped, turning to face him fully. "Not a single moment. Even the painful ones. They all led here." He gestured to the space around them. But Alex understood he meant more than just the building. They paused before the center's dedication plaque, where the words "From Pretend to Purpose" were engraved beneath their names. Jackson's arms slipped around Alex's waist. The gesture no longer performed for cameras or contracts, but from a place of quiet certainty. "You know what I've learned this year," Jackson murmured, his voice soft in the stillness. "What's that?" "Sometimes the most authentic lives begin with inauthentic moments. Sometimes we have to pretend to be what we aspire to before we become it for real." Alex smiled, leaning into his husband's embrace as they stood surrounded by the physical manifestation of their journey, a space of safety created from their own hard-won security in each other. Have you ever found that your greatest truth emerged from what once seemed like a necessary deception? That sometimes we must wear a mask before we discover our real face beneath it? Share your stories of transformation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to Heart Stories, where we celebrate the courage it takes to become who you truly are, even when the path there isn't what you expected.